Justin's latest claim? That there was an alleged confrontation between him and Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds, where Ryan, quote, launched into a tirade and accused Justin of fat-shaming Blake in an encounter he calls traumatic.
I know this gets overused now, but she did FAFO. Like, she thought she could blame all of her negative press on him. He's a weakling. She's Blake Lively with Ryan Reynolds, her dragon. And she decided, I can't take 1 month worth of negative press, which she got, generated, she says, by him. He says, by you and your badness. And she's so thin-skinned, look what happens to you. Look what happened to poor J. Cal even on this show. People get picked on when they're in the public eye.
As tensions rise in the ever-dramatic world of Hollywood, a real-life saga has broken out beyond the confines of the movie set. The feud between It Ends With Us co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has officially reached a boiling point, and with shocking new evidence surfacing, this might just be Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard 2.0 all over again.
The It Ends With Us legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni keeps on escalating. Blake's team is on the hunt for receipts and has filed a subpoena seeking every single one of Justin's phone calls, text messages, data logs, and real-time location information over the past 2.5 years. Her attorneys tell ET they will, quote, expose the people, tactics, and methods that have worked to destroy and bury her reputation.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Usually one side will ask for whatever they can, but there will be pushback. And those requests typically get limited or restricted in some way.
Justin's lawyer calls the move a, quote, massive fishing expedition. In the midst of this court battle, It Ends With Us author Colleen Hoover has quietly reactivated her Instagram account after 3 weeks, but she deleted all of her posts featuring Justin or Blake.
I take no credit for that.
Action!
And after Blake was accused of turning the cast against Justin, yet another newly resurfaced interview is coming back to haunt her.
Because she oversteps her boundaries a bit.
In a 2009 interview with Glamour, the Gossip Girl star says when Penn Badgley was cast as her love interest, quote, I was so upset that they hired him, I actually poisoned the whole cast against him.
Oh, wow.
What?
Blake says it took around a week before she realized he wasn't a jerk. The two went on to date for around 3 years.
Don't be mad.
No, I'm not mad.
At first glance, it might seem like just another petty Hollywood spat, but this goes way deeper. While some speculate that this is nothing more than a carefully orchestrated PR stunt to keep both stars in the limelight, insiders are painting a far more sinister picture.
Okay, so we have some updates in the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni case we want to talk about right now. First up, Blake Lively's team is indicating they are going on the offensive. And remember, she was the one who first started all this, right? So she filed her initial civil rights complaint with the California Civil Rights Department that matured into then a federal lawsuit, and she has sued Baldoni, his production company Wayfair Studios, and other executives and team members, alleging that Baldoni, her co-star, director of the film It Ends With Us, sexually harassed her and created a hostile work environment on that set, and then proceeded to launch a smear campaign against her in the media and online to destroy her reputation. Now, he countersued, and he filed a suit against not only her, but her husband Ryan Reynolds as well, and argued that she destroyed his reputation, that she did that with false allegations that she weaponized against him, that she coordinated all this with the New York Times to publish these alleged false allegations in a piece about him, that she ultimately took control over all aspects of the film, boxed him out, and then he claims that he hired a crisis management team to not go on the offensive against Blake Lively to damage her reputation, but rather the defensive to prepare if she made claims against him. And by the way, he also sued the New York Times as well for defamation. So there is a lot going on here, a lot of what's been happening, but that is the basic gist. Now, Baldoni has spent a considerable amount of time and effort seemingly litigating this case in the public, right? His attorney Brian Friedman doing a number of interviews, allegedly releasing behind-the-scenes footage of a dancing scene in an effort to prove that Justin Baldoni, his client, wasn't acting inappropriately, launching a website that featured never-before-seen text messages between Baldoni and Lively and Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds. The website also featured a timeline of events according to Baldoni, a newly filed amended complaint. By the way, as you know, we have been trying to cover all of the big updates in the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively story. This fight has been made quite public, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. It seems that this fight is equally as important for the public, the court of public opinion, as it is in a courtroom. Now, Blake Lively is fighting back. So according to Deadline, her legal team sent out a bunch of subpoenas to companies like AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, AOL, Cloudflare Inc., as well as one of the people that she accused of being complicit in this alleged smear campaign against her, Jed Wallace, a crisis management specialist.
Veteran journalist and attorney Megyn Kelly has stepped in, calling out what she sees as manipulative industry tactics from Blake and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. According to Kelly, Baldoni, who doesn't hold as much power in Hollywood as the influential power couple, is being subjected to workplace bullying. His visibly restrained responses in interviews have only fueled speculation that he's being silenced by major players who could easily end his career.
We got to spend a minute on Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, okay? I know the ruthless fellas have been all up in this business. And, I mean, no, but seriously, have you followed it at all?
A little bit. I mean,
Okay.
it's all over the tabloids, so you got to see it a little bit. I don't know if you're an
All
expert,
over the
but-
tabloids.
yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so for those of you, just a quick two-liner for those of you not following it. They started this movie, It Ends With Us, about domestic violence. It was his movie that he bought the rights for from the woman who wrote the book, Colleen Hoover. Then he managed to convince Blake Lively to star in it with him, and all hell broke loose. She claims he sexual harassed her, and then by the time they premiered the movie, they weren't even speaking to each other. She made him stay in the basement, and Ryan Reynolds turned on him too. And then she claimed that he unleashed a bad PR campaign against her, and he claims none of that is true. There was absolutely no harassment. Those are made-up claims. She wrested his movie away from him and decided to try to hurt him with petty, made-up, out-of-context complaints when he pushed back even in the mildest way, and that she and her husband are bullies, and now it's resulted in vicious cross litigations against both of them. The New York Times is being sued for defamation by Baldoni through his lawyer, Brian Friedman, who's also my attorney, who's been on the show, and it's as vicious as it can get in Hollywood. My own position is she's absolutely ruined her brand. She has started a fight she cannot win. She does appear like an Amber Heard to me. I have yet to see one of her complaints borne out. In fact, all of the ones I've seen have been undermined by his hardcore proof in text messaging and so on that puts a totally different light on her horrific allegations. Then you see what she actually said and wrote. It's very different. She called herself Khaleesi and said Ryan Reynolds and we believe Taylor Swift were her dragons. And she's got the best dragons because they'll fight on behalf of her friends too. Now she and Taylor are reportedly on the outs because Taylor Swift is like, bitch, I'm nobody's dragon. That's unconfirmed, but it's out there. And today we see some evidence now that Blake Lively may have a history of not being upfront when she gets cast in a movie of her secret desires to actually play a much bigger role than that of lead actress. Here she is at the 2022 Forbes Power Women's Summit.
I would show up on a set. I knew that they just wanted me to show up and look cute and stand on a little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say. But I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing, in the costume design, in creating the character. And sometimes I had directors or producers or writers who would welcome that and invite that once they saw that I was able to offer that. And sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, we just hired you to be an actor. Yet when I went in the meetings, I would just seem like I'm just there to be the actor and ready to get the gig. I wouldn't reveal that I actually need to have authorship in order to feel fulfilled. So I think that for them, sometimes that might have felt like a rug pull because you're like, you're trying to assert yourself into something that we didn't hire you to do.
So she's a serial fraudster. That's called fraud. When you pretend you want to do the one thing and you'll do the thing they're hiring you for, but all along you have secret plans to do something very, very different that's above your pay grade. And she finally bumped into someone who was weak enough and not famous enough to stop her, right? This Justin Baldoni, most people had never even heard of him. He'd been in like one series. He certainly wasn't at Ryan Reynolds level fame, never mind Blake Lively. And she bullied him into giving her the movie where she did her own cut. They released the cut of the movie. He didn't even get to see it. He was the director of the film, the producer of the film, the guy who got the rights to the film, the one who's supposed to be in control. He didn't even get to see it. He was in the basement at his own movie premiere. And then she had the nerve, because she had 2 minutes of bad publicity when the film hit, to come out and try to blame it all on him. None of it was just due to the fact that she seems like a rather shitty person. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's wild. She just pretty much said the whole problem here. It's like, if you hire the plumber and he climbs out from under the sink and says, now let's talk about how you've decorated the place. It's like, what are you talking about, man? I gave you a job.
How dare they hire an actor to act, you know?
Right.
Deal with a little
and
bit
she
of
tries
this
to make it
on
sound
set
like
here
a
at
female
Ruthless.
empowerment thing, like they just wanted me to be an actor. Well, yes, I mean, maybe someday you could be a producer or a screenwriter, but no one contracted with you to do that here. And that's another allegation, Holmes, is that she started to rewrite scenes that nobody had asked her to rewrite.
That's just wild to me. I mean, the plumber thing is absolutely perfect. I mean, you hired somebody to do a job and they're like, well, hold on a second. I've got a different vision for your toilet.
Right.
I'd like to create a bidet.
Here's the other piece of it. One other piece of it. So she is accused of having turned the whole cast of It Ends With Us against Justin. By the time they premiered the movie, Ryan Reynolds had unfollowed him on Insta, so had Blake, so had the rest of the cast. Now you tell me, if you're an unknown actor in this film and you know that Blake and Ryan have turned on the no-name Justin Baldoni, who are you going to follow?
But just as the internet was split over who to believe, Baldoni dropped the kind of receipts no one saw coming. And when I say receipts, I mean undeniable, game-changing proof. According to Baldoni, Lively had been sending him highly inappropriate messages, even after he repeatedly set boundaries and reminded her that he's a married man.
These are the handwritten notes about their big-screen sex scenes that may have sparked the multi-million-dollar It Ends With Us battle. Justin Baldoni unleashing the never-before-seen image on his explosive new website. Inside, he claims Blake skipped out on a meeting with an intimacy coordinator before filming, telling him, "I feel good. I can meet her when we start. Thank you, though."
And then let's just do one almost like super close.
Justin, who has also released behind-the-scenes footage from the movie, claims that Blake instead insisted that he meet to read her his notes from the coordinator at her New York penthouse home. Those included explicit conversations about their sex scenes, including references to foreplay.
It's a big problem. It's a really big problem.
Justin says those notes became the basis for her lawsuit, where she alleged inappropriate behavior. As for claims in Blake's lawsuit that he fat-shamed her after the birth of her fourth baby, Justin included this text message he says that he sent Blake. It tells her, "You will look amazing. Anything you are insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body." But Justin's lawsuit goes beyond sex, alleged lies, and video and audio tape.
I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That must have felt terrible. And I will for sure do better.
Money spent during filming is also now an issue.
Oh, here it goes.
Baldoni claims the wardrobe budget for the film ballooned by nearly $500,000, claiming she paid no heed to budget constraints.
You do so much storytelling through fashion, and tonight is no exception. Can I get a little story behind this?
Blake, who put on a one-woman fashion show as she promoted the movie around the globe.
This is Britney's Versace dress, 2002, the butterfly dress.
Had not addressed Justin's new claims by our deadline. The two sides are not only fighting their battle in court, but also the court of public opinion. The sequel to Blake's 2018 film, A Simple Favor with Anna Kendrick, will not be shelved.
People do terrible things for their own reasons.
Instead, it's getting the featured spot opening next month's South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, Texas. Justin is reportedly hosting two families who lost their homes in the wildfires at his $2.8 million Ojai, California home, while he and his family vacation in Hawaii. But his lawyer, Brian Friedman, told us Justin isn't done dropping new bombshells.
He's feeling like you would feel if you were wrongfully accused of something
you'd feel pretty devastated. And he's looking for justice.
The leaked messages tell a different story than the one Blake and Ryan seem to be spinning in the media right now. Instead of playing the victim, Blake might just be the one pulling the strings.
To Lively, he writes her, "Been deep into writing, really fun with you in mind." Fun, not right word, and he puts a emoji and then an exciting emoji face, and then Lively responded, "You're safe here," with a smiling face emoji and prayer hands emoji. That is significant, in my opinion, her saying you're safe here, because he could make the argument that that signaled to him that he didn't have to worry about his choice of words, that he could speak freely. That's an important consideration as we move forward into claims that he crossed the line into sexual harassment on set. There was another text exchange between the two where, when talking about a scene, she writes Baldoni, quote, "If you knew me in person longer, you'd have a sense of how flirty and yummy the ball busting would play. It's my love language. Spicy and playfully bold, never with teeth." So look, at the very least, he could make the argument that she was the one who had no issue talking provocatively and speaking like this, and she was the one who crossed the line. That's an argument he could potentially make. So let's go back to Ryan Reynolds. So Baldoni says that by February 17th, Lively was expressing concerns about her body and the sex scenes, and he's allegedly reassuring her not to worry about it, that they will figure this out creatively. So again, this is all at the very beginning. And then we get to February 28th, 2023. So Baldoni sends a long text message to actor Ryan Reynolds, again, Lively's husband. He is an A-list star. And it says in part, quote, "Hey Ryan, Justin Baldoni here, the guy who brought his," and I think it says internal baggage, "to his meeting with your wife. I asked Blake for your number well over a month ago and have wanted to text you for a while now. In the end, by harassing Blake Lively, the argument could be that this is already Reynolds allegedly putting the pressure on Baldoni to accept Lively's direction and suggestions. Just something to keep in mind. All right, let's move on. So Reynolds continues, "And thank you for understanding what it means to me personally to have my family reunited as soon as possible. Nothing means more to her either, I can promise you. We're hardwired for keeping our family together. It's how to win us, and also how to kill us when we can't. We never split up, ever. It was a huge thing for us on this film. I tried to push our start date, but Marvel booked studios last July." This is in regards to his film, Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine, which released last summer. He goes on to say, "I've been frantically smashing out my third pass of the script to address structural changes, but mostly to get our budget down and shorten the shoot so I can fly back with the girls when school starts. We see and appreciate that you already moved significantly to make it work with her schedule because of the film she's already committed to, which thankfully she was able to gracefully," and I can't read that word.
And then he writes this, "All this to say, I'd have your line producer face tattooed to my perineum if he, she, they can figure out how to start 2 weeks earlier." Now, I'm not going to tell you what a perineum is, but look it up and you'll see. Very Deadpool-esque kind of humor. And then Reynolds continues, "Completely understand how big of an ass that is, but the perineum is one of the most nervy parts of the human body to expose to trauma. So, looking forward to seeing you, and thank you again for all you're doing. I happen to adore you, Justin. XO."
By the way, that XO could actually be in reference to Gossip Girl, the end tagline at the end of each episode, which of course Lively starred in. But Baldoni ended up responding, "This is the sweetest." Now, let's be clear about something. These messages were way before all the alleged drama, right? It's not like this came out in the middle of the conflict or the production, so it's not like they're saying, "Oh, there were all these problems, but look what Ryan Reynolds is texting Justin Baldoni." No. This was before all of this. So why is it relevant?
One of the most heated points of contention? The rooftop scene, a pivotal moment in the film that has now become the centerpiece of their legal battle. Reports suggest that Lively, 37, pushed for script changes, later crediting her husband Ryan Reynolds for the rewrite. Baldoni, 41, allegedly felt pressured to comply, not just because of Reynolds' involvement, but also due to Lively's close ties with Taylor Swift, one of the most influential figures in Hollywood.
I would have to compare it to the original one, but that's 99%
So who wrote the rooftop scene? Was it Blake Lively? Was it her husband, Ryan Reynolds? Or was it the person that was credited in the film, Christy Hall? Because remember how Blake Lively wrote a message to Justin Baldoni essentially asking like, "Hey, could I take a pass at writing the rooftop scene?" Now, for those of you guys who didn't read the book or watch the movie, the rooftop scene is a very important scene because that is where Lily Bloom, the main character, meets her love interest, Ryo Kincaid. Let's briefly revisit these text messages. So this is Blake Lively messaging Justin Baldoni, and she's like, oh, you know, the cute scene is to me the most important scene in the movie, sets a tone, and needs to feel extra special. You okay if I play around with some of the dialogue to give her a little bit more agency and fun and send it to you? And Justin Baldoni writes, what? Fuck yes. Blake Lively, I can send you a pass to the roof or just read you when we get together next week. Let me know what you prefer. Now, if you guys remember in the Blake Lively complaint and then also Justin Baldoni's response and in timeline, this rooftop scene was a huge deal, furthermore, because it's what led to Justin Baldoni going over to Blake Lively's penthouse where he was greeted by Ryan Reynolds, and essentially it seems like he felt pressured by Blake Lively and her husband and her possible mega celebrity friend, maybe Taylor Swift, into pressuring him into letting Blake Lively's version of the rooftop scene ultimately be the one that is used in the movie. And then this leads to more text message with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, because Blake writes this whole sob story where she talks about how she's been overlooked by so many directors in the past and how she's had to like write stuff for the script and they wouldn't credit her, blah, 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 and how she was hired as a yes man and just as someone who was an actress. This leads to Justin Baldoni writing this like, oh my God, I'm so sorry this happened to you. And not only that, but he gives her a voice memo, which I haven't listened to most of it yet. Maybe we'll listen to it together at the end of this video, but it led to 12-minute, 2 a.m. voice memo from Justin Baldoni, and this whole rooftop thing was such a big deal. But the silly thing is, at the premiere about a year later, well, Blake Lively didn't even write the rooftop scene. She went and told a news reporter, hey, it was actually my husband that wrote it.
Ryan's here tonight. What is it like for the both of you to be promoting major motion pictures at the same time?
Oh my gosh, it's just so thrilling in our house right now. We help each other, we work together so much. So the iconic rooftop scene in this movie, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you know. But he wrote it. He works on everything I do. I work on everything he does. So his wins, his celebrations are mine, and mine are his. I mean, he's all over this film.
However, at the same premiere, the screenwriter was there, and she talks about writing the rooftop scene.
Was there any scene in particular that was challenging to work through?
As a writer, probably the most difficult scene for me to crack was the rooftop scene, because I have to say Colleen wrote it perfectly. And I wish I could have just lifted it from the pages and just put it in the film, but it's a little too long for film language. And so my first crack at it, it was like a 10-page scene, which is a little impossible. So the question became, what do we keep? What do we shave off? There's a lot of heavy lifting in that scene, and I'm so proud to the performers for really, there's just a lot of things that have to happen in that scene. He's kicking over a chair all the way to like them starting to get a little intimate. And if you really look at the emotional beats of the scene, it's incredible how many layers there are. So on the page, it took a long time to get right. And then I have to say, like, Justin and Blake just killed it.
The screenwriter was actually the first person that was hired to work on this project. This is an interview that she does where she mentions being hired by Justin Baldoni. So I had not read the book when I got approached to potentially vie for this job. Justin Baldoni acquired the rights to the book under the umbrella of his production company, Wayfair Studios. This was actually supposed to be more of a smaller indie movie that Wayfair was going to completely go independently. So Justin was aware of my work. I think you read a spec of mine, Daddy-O, the film that I just wrote and directed.
And here's where things take a surprising twist. Blake insists that her close friend, none other than Taylor Swift, knows exactly what went down between her and Justin. But instead of stepping in to defend her bestie, Taylor has stayed completely silent. That's right. Despite Blake facing mounting backlash, Taylor is noticeably absent from the conversation, refusing to publicly take her side.
Blake Lively has bragged about her big friendships in Hollywood, but it seems like she's losing her steam, and now she was just dropped by Taylor Swift. Blake Lively and Taylor Swift first became acquainted in 2015 when Blake Lively did an ad for L'Oreal and she mentioned Taylor Swift's song Bad Blood in the Instagram post. And because of that, a few months later, the two decided to meet in Australia while Taylor Swift was forming a concert and they formed a friendship there. In 2021, Taylor Swift decided to help out Blake Lively's career because she was trying to be a director, so she let her direct her music video, I Bet You Think About Me. Now that friendship's being put through the rocks because Justin Baldoni in his lawsuit against Blake Lively has named Taylor Swift, saying Blake Lively would use Taylor as a weapon against him. With a big example being a fight that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni had when making It Ends With Us, where Blake Lively wanted a rewrite that Justin Baldoni didn't want to do. Blake Lively invited Justin Baldoni over to dinner where Taylor Swift was there, and Taylor Swift was trying to put pressure on Baldoni to change the script to the way Blake Lively wanted it. Justin Baldoni also said that Blake Lively threatened to ruin his career, saying she was a Khaleesi and had her dragons, referring to Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift. That friendship looks to be over because the two haven't been seen together in months, and Blake Lively hasn't attended any football games with Taylor Swift. So it looks like the Khaleesi lost one of her dragons to the Night King, and with that, I'm Charles Pearl, subscribe to learn.
Out of the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni legal battle, Eva Pilgrim's been tracking. She's here with the latest. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, George. This is a big mess for everyone involved. The legal drama playing out in multiple courts now, literally from coast to coast, and all kinds of people close to these stars, from personal trainers to friends like Taylor Swift, finding their names mentioned as part of this ongoing fight.
I thought we were friends.
We are friends.
This morning, the Hollywood knockdown dragout between It Ends With Us stars Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, now threatening to drag in one of the biggest superstars in the world, Taylor Swift. Baldoni's attorney appearing on TMZ's Two Angry Men podcast, telling the host they are not ruling out deposing Lively's megastar best friend.
I think that that's going to be, probably a game time decision. Anyone that reasonably has information that can be, that can provide evidence in this case is going to be deposed.
The comments, a reference to the mention of Taylor Swift in Baldoni's lawsuit. The suit alleging the singer was at Lively and husband Ryan Reynolds' penthouse during a meeting over script differences. Afterwards, Baldoni claiming he felt obliged to text Lively to say he had liked her pages and hadn't needed Reynolds and her mega celebrity friend to pressure him. A source close to the situation saying Swift wasn't there for the meeting, that she arrived as Baldoni was leaving and never saw any clips from the movie until after it came out, adding she is not relevant to the case. Meanwhile, a new lawsuit now filed in this ever-growing drama. This time, the crisis manager Lively claimed weaponized a digital army to destroy her reputation and shift the narrative, now suing the actress for $7 million. Jed Wallace with Street Relations saying she acted with actual malice because she was the one claiming to have been harassed and retaliated against. She knew and knows that they were not the harassers' retaliators, but made these allegations anyway, leaked them to the press, hoping they would be widely republished. Wallace's attorney telling ABC News in part, Wallace has not engaged in a smear campaign against her at any point in time. Lively's team responding in part, another day, another state, another 9-figure lawsuit seeking to sue Ms. Lively into oblivion for speaking out against and retaliation. This is not just a publicity stunt, it is transparent retaliation in response to allegations contained within a and retaliation complaint that Ms. Lively filed.
So lawyers for both Baldoni and Lively were in court earlier this week. Their trial is now set for March of next year, and a federal judge warning both attorneys to rein in the public battle to avoid influencing a potential jury. I can tell you, though, I don't think people are going to stop talking about this.
Yeah, reining it in at this point, too, after all
hard.
these different things. Thank you, Eva. We appreciate it.
As more details come to light, the tide seems to be turning against Blake. The internet is dragging her for what many believe is a classic case of manipulation and deceit. To make matters worse, several women have stepped forward, sharing their own experiences with Baldoni, and they're defending him.
Charles here from TMZ. You like lawsuits? Justin Baldoni very clearly does, because as promised, he has filed yet another lawsuit in this ongoing battle over It Ends With Us and Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and now Taylor Swift is also mentioned in this nearly 200-page lawsuit that he filed. And we went through all of that. You don't need to read all of it because we did, and we're going to tell you all the highlights because this is, wow, some real big stuff here. Now, how Taylor Swift gets involved? Well, one of the things, basically Justin's lawsuit that he has filed, Justin and his production company, Wayfarer Studios, have filed this lawsuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and also Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, for a whole slew of things. By the way, he wants no less than $400 million. Now, here's how Taylor Swift comes into it. He is not suing Taylor Swift, but I think he understood that mentioning Taylor would get it a lot more attention. So, he talks about when they were making the film, before they had started filming, they were talking about the script. And there's a very key scene, if you've seen the movie, where the main characters meet, where Blake Lively and Justin's characters meet on the rooftop. He says that Blake decided to do a rewrite of the scene, and they were having a meeting to discuss that. So Justin goes over to Blake and Ryan Reynolds' New York City penthouse, and they are having this meeting. Ryan is there the whole time. Justin doesn't say that he has any issue with that, but Ryan is there singing the praises of his wife's work. So this is great. And Justin says, I hear you. And a couple hours into the meeting, boom, Taylor Swift pops in. Of course, Taylor, BFF of Blake's. And Taylor says, oh my God, I loved it. This is great. It's amazing. She puts in her 2 cents. And Justin says in the lawsuit, he understood what this meeting was all about. And he actually describes it now as more of an ambush. But the point was, Blake's in control here, and you better do things the way Blake wants it done. And he seems in the lawsuit to say that he was going to go along with that. He understood that he was up against a lot here, so he said, fine, we'll go along with it. And he texts, this is really great. I got to grab this here. Hang on. So after the meeting, he texts Blake to say, love the script, and I actually loved it even before you had Blake and before you had Ryan and Taylor throw their input into this whole thing. He said, I loved it. So Blake responds, and he includes the text message in the lawsuit. She makes a Game of Thrones reference. She says, this is her texting Justin. If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi. And like her, I happen to have a few dragons, for better or worse, but usually for better, because my dragons also protect those I fight for. So really, we all benefit from these gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you. So yeah, Taylor Swift is a dragon, and so is Ryan Reynolds. Beyond that, it goes into a lot of the things that we've heard in the other lawsuits about battling for control of the movie, the fact that the studio, Sony Studio, said, fine, we'll do 2 movies. We'll cut 2 versions of the film, Blake's version and Justin's version. Remember, he's the director. The agreement, Justin says in the lawsuit, the agreement was whichever one tested better, that's the one they would go with. He says his version actually tested significantly better than Blake's version, and yet they ended up going with Blake's version because Blake told Sony, if you don't use my version, I'm not going to promote the film. And so, according to Justin, Sony had to give in, and he's clearly not happy about this. He describes it as having to fire himself off the movie because he was the director, but now they weren't using the director's cut of the film. There is a lot of bad blood here. He also goes into Leslie Sloan, the publicist for Blake, saying that once everything started to blow up when the movie came out and there was all this public backlash against Blake, that Leslie Sloan and Blake engaged in this smear campaign against him so that she could seem like the martyr and he could seem like the real life villain. And he goes into all the details of that. There are text messages, many of which we've seen in the lawsuit that Justin has already filed against the New York Times for $250 million. It's a lot of money here, and a lot of people involved. So how this one turns out, whether it actually ends up in court, my guess is no. But yes, another lawsuit filed, and I suspect there are still more to come in this ongoing battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. We will have it for you when it comes down.
With a lawsuit possibly looming, the big question remains, did Blake really think she could get away with this? Is she the one at fault, or is there another side to the story that has yet to unfold? So what's your take? Are you Team Justin or Team Blake? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're here for all the Hollywood drama, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping updates. Until next time, fam, stay tuned.